and welcome to this learning session. This has been brought to you from the COP from the ICF Mumbai Charter Chapter. So I'm Gayatri, I lead the COP and I'm your host for today. And I'm a coach and I'm leading the coach support group COP for ICF Mumbai Charter Chapter. With me in the hosting team are Nandini and Preeti. Preeti will be curating the Q&A and watching the chat space for any questions or comments. Nandini is the virtual assistant for the ICF Mumbai Charter Chapter and would be administering the Zoom session. So welcome again. Good evening to all of you and thanks for joining in. I look forward to all our monthly sessions and to the global audience that we normally have. As requested by YVL, he is our speaker for today. He is quite happy to have all of you put up your videos on. So please do put on your videos if you feel like, but do mute your audio so that we have a webinar without any disturbance coming in, just for avoiding any inadvertent disruption to the session. During the session, if you have any burning questions, please do put it in the chat box. Preeti or Nandini will curate that for you. We do have 2 breaks in the session where we would encourage you to bring up any questions to our speaker. For those who wish to claim the CCEUs for this session, we have 1 CCE awarded by ICF for this, and we'll post the link to a Google form in the chat box closer to the end of the session. You can complete the link and claim your CCU forms. We also invite you to stay on for networking and sharing. And last but not the least, we will have a quick photo shoot just before the Q&A, and I'll give you the nudge. Do bring up all your cameras in case you prefer to have it off during the session. I once again welcome you to this learning engagement brought to you by the COP support group of ICF Mumbai Charter Chapter. I would like to acknowledge that we did experience a glitch getting into the Zoom session. I think there was some registration issue which happened, and you might have been prompted to re-register or perhaps complete the rest of the registration form. Thank you for doing that and braving through that and getting in here in time. As you all know, today's topic, very interesting one, deep dive into CC3, which is the core competency 3, establishes and maintains coaching agreement. Competency 3 of ICF coaching competencies is an extremely important competency and is key to a masterful coaching session and cornerstone to partnering and co-creating the relationship. This session will cover the definition and all the important aspects of this competency. We will also focus on how a coach can demonstrate this competency in full during a session and the various nuances that might come up during a coaching session. A real-life coaching session example will be used to solidify the learning about this competency. You all will take away or learn today in-depth understanding of all aspects of this competency, in-depth understanding of the markers of this competency, and how to demonstrate this competency in a coaching session. Well, I think I've already eaten into 6 minutes of YVL, so let me introduce our speaker to you today. Lakshminarayan Pandit, popularly known as YVL, is a master certified coach from ICF and has been a leadership coach for over a decade. His coaching is underpinned by his business experience of 4 decades, of which over 25 years were in leadership positions with P&L responsibility, and his passion for helping leaders realize their full potential. He has experience in diverse industries with FMCG, textiles, telecommunications, and consulting in reputed companies like Unilever, Arvind Mills, Tata Teleservices, and SHL. He has lived and worked in Hong Kong and Indonesia, leading APAC and global markets for nearly a decade. Currently, he is the founder and chief executive of Pinnacle Leadership Consulting, focusing on executive coaching and leadership development. So without much ado, I hand it over to YVL. Thank you so much, YVL, for doing this for the chapter and for the global coach community. It's all yours. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Gayatri. Can everybody hear me clearly? Great. So first of all, thanks to ICF Mumbai chapter for giving me this opportunity to conduct this session. I would like also to thank all of you for taking the time to be present here. And I'd like to thank Gayatri particularly for giving me valuable inputs while I was preparing the content for this session. Thank you. As Gayatri mentioned, let me see if I can share my screen. I'll be talking about competency 3, establishes and maintains agreement. While I'll be sharing my experience, my learning, and my perspective, a number of you, or most of you here, are experienced coaches. And I would very much welcome your participation, your contribution through discussions. I'll have opportunities for us to have discussion. And I would also request you to post on the chat box your comments, your thoughts as we go along. Gayatri mentioned that this is, while all core competencies are important, this is an extremely important competency because this sets the context and the frame within which coaching happens. Not just the coaching session, but the entire coaching journey for the client and for various stakeholders. What I'll be doing in this session is taking you through the competency definition, PCC markers, and MCC minimum skill requirement. Then I plan to open up for discussion to hear your views and ideas. And then I'd like to take you through a fictitious but realistic demonstration or a case study of this competency in action. And we will follow that up with an open discussion amongst all of us. Let me jump straight into the definition of this competency. The definition is that the coach partners with the client and relevant stakeholders to create clear agreements about the coaching relationship, process, plans, and goals, establishes agreements for the overall coaching engagement, as well as those for each coaching session. So I'd like to highlight a few key points here. First, what I've highlighted in red, partners. Basically, this underpins or goes through almost all the competencies, but particularly relevant here, that the coach partners with the client in arriving at agreements about the coaching relationship and relevant stakeholders for the overall coaching engagement, as well as those for each individual session. This is, in fact, a clearer elaboration of the earlier competency, which covered these aspects. In fact, in the updated competencies, this aspect about relevant stakeholders, overall coaching engagement, have been made more clear. So there are several sub-competencies. The first 5 sub-competencies deal with what happens before the actual coaching session. So first, the coach explains what coaching is and is not, and describes the process to the client and relevant stakeholders. As many of us know, many of our stakeholders in the coaching engagement, as well as even sometimes the client, are not very clear about the distinction between coaching, mentoring, or training. And therefore, it's very important to make that aspect very clear. And reaches an agreement about what is and what is not appropriate in the relationship, and what is and what is not being offered. Again, the distinction between what coaching is, what mentoring is, and how or other interventions, and what the difference is, and the responsibilities of the client and the relevant stakeholders. Third, the coach reaches an agreement about the guidelines specific parameters of the coaching relationship, such as logistics, fees, scheduling, duration, termination, and confidentiality and inclusion of others. Confidentiality is another very important aspect. Many cases, as in many situations, as many of you may know already, that the HR and the line managers, and sometimes even people in the head office, expect the coach to report back on what is happening in a coaching engagement or a coaching sessions. So it's very important to make it clear that about the ICF Code of Ethics, about confidentiality, and what can be communicated to them or what cannot be communicated. In fact, we can spend half an hour on discussing these aspects of the engagement with stakeholders and the client, but the focus of my content is basically on what happens during a coaching session. Fourth, coach partners with the client and relevant stakeholders to establish an overall coaching plan and goals, and partners with the client to determine client and coach compatibility. In fact, while establishing the overall coaching plan and goals, there might be or there could be involvement of the line manager and HR in setting the overall goals for the coaching engagement. And as coaches, we need to be aware of it, and we may need to include that in the whole engagement process. So all of these typically happen before the commencement of coaching sessions with the client. And the next set of 6 competencies or sub-competencies deal with what happens during a coaching session. The first is the coach partners with the client to identify or reconfirm what they want to accomplish in the session. Partners with the client to define what the client believes they need to address or resolve to achieve what they want to accomplish in the session. Third, partners with the client to define or reconfirm measures of success for what the client wants to accomplish in the coaching engagement or the individual session. So I will deep dive into these 3 aspects, basically which are covered under the PCC markers and the MCC minimum skills requirement. I will deep dive into it as we go along. Fourth, the coach partners with the client to manage time and focus of the session during the session, and continues coaching in the direction of the client's desired outcome unless the client indicates otherwise. So these are all what happens during a coaching session. But finally, the coach partners with the client to end the coaching relationship in a way that honors the experience. I think this is a wonderful statement to say that how the coach should end the coaching relationship and in a way that honors the experience. It's a wonderful expression of what a coach and the client are expected to do in the coaching engagement. With this definition and of the competency and the sub-competencies, I'll move to the markers, the PCC markers. Now, we should be clear that the markers of behaviors that represent demonstration of the core competencies in a coaching conversation at the PCC level. This is what an assessor who's listening to a coaching conversation, typically in a recording, is going to be observing or is going to be marking. However, it's very important that the markers should not be used in a formulaic manner. That's as if we are ticking the check boxes that I've covered, marker 1, marker 2, marker 3, marker 4. It's very important that conversation is in a conversational style, not driven or conducted in a formulaic manner. The first marker is 3.1, It says that coach partners with the client to identify and reconfirm what the client wants to accomplish in this session. This is usually about a challenge the client is facing or a goal that they would like to attain. It could also be more exploratory, abstract, such as brainstorming or exploring different concepts and ideas. Now, in a typical coaching session, as most of you are aware, you would typically start by saying, what would be useful for you to talk about or discuss during this session, or what would be beneficial for you to talk about in this session. It could even be something like what's on the top of your mind today. Then the coachee or the client is likely to come up with a narrative, explaining or talking about what they have in their mind that they want to discuss or talk about during the session. This is typically a narrative, and it could contain several threads or several streams or several ideas. The purpose of the next few points I'm going to say is to get a focus in the client's mind as to exactly what they want to accomplish in the session. So if there are multiple threads or multiple issues that the coachee is narrating, it's important to ask the client. When I say client, I'm also, I use the words interchangeably, coachee and client. Which issue should be the focus for the session? So that we narrow it down to one particular issue that could be the focus for the session. Then, once that is clear, to explore feelings, impact on the coachee and the coachee's thinking. It's very important to explore these, and I'll talk more about this as we go along. And thirdly, to notice what is happening with the coachee in terms of either their energy levels, their expressions, tone of voice, and reflect it back to the coachee. And then explore that aspect further. So with this, you're going deeper and deeper into the coachee's mind, coachee's thinking. And one of the key points we need to keep in mind as we do this exploration is to differentiate between no-seek curiosity and coach curiosity. These are the terms used by Marianne Franklin, who's written the book on laser-focused coaching. She says the questions should be not about the situation, but about the coachee. For example, if the coachee says, I had a very difficult time and I had a rough interaction with my boss, and my boss was very upset with me, I want to talk about that. What did the boss say that upset you? Is no-seek curiosity. What the boss actually said is not relevant for helping the coachee, because coachee already knows what the boss said. What is important to ask is, how did that make you feel? Or what impact did it have? What the boss said, what impact did it have on you? That is coach curiosity, because the focus of that curiosity is on the coachee, not on the situation. So it's very important to distinguish these two aspects as we probe the coachee's feelings, thinking, as we go along exploring this marker. And finally, only after sufficient exploration of these should the coach ask what the coachee wants to accomplish in this session. Only after, it could be anywhere between 6-8 minutes, 5-6 minutes. There's no specific time limit set, but the deeper you explore this, the richer will be the conversation in the rest of the session. Now, having explored this and identified what the client wants or the coachee wants to accomplish in the session, then we move to the second marker, which is coach partners with the client to define or reconfirm measures of success for what the client wants to accomplish in this session. This is typically a measure of success is evidence that which is concrete and clearly defined that indicates what the coach and the client have accomplished in the session's goal. Or have sufficiently explored the session topic of focus. So measures of success can be tangible, like specific 2 or 3 actions, couple of steps, 2, 3 steps, or it could be intangible, like feelings, emotional state, feeling more confident, having a lighter feeling about the situation. And therefore, it's important to ask, what are some concrete indicators that we can use at the end of the session to gauge how successful we were at meeting your session goal? By asking this question, the coach is partnering with the client to define a measure of success or measures of success. While I took that first bullet point straight from the assessor manual for PCC assessor certification, but it's very important to note that we should not use the words like concrete indicators, session to gauge how successful. All the words we use must be actually conversational. Typically, like, if this is what you want to accomplish by the end of the session, how will we know that you have what you need by the end of the session? What will tell you that you have achieved by the achieved your goal or your what you want to achieve by the end of the session? For example, let's say the coachee says, I would like to have a better work-life balance. In fact, one of my coaches, a senior salesperson, divisional sales head, said, I work long hours. I travel 10 to 12 days a month. I come home every day at about 8:30, and my 2 children are almost ready to go to bed. I don't get any time for exercise. I definitely need to get a work-life balance in place. So explore what impact does that have on your life, et cetera, and then say, how will you know by the end of the session that you have what it takes to have a better work-life balance? Or if the coachee's issues are, how do I deal with a troublesome staff member? I have a staff member who is not following what he or she needs to do. I need to confront that person, and that's what I want to achieve. The question could be, I would like to have greater confidence in dealing with this person. The measure of success could be, how will you know that you have that confidence by the end of the session? So it's very important to probe so that we get to know what will tell us by the end of the session that we have achieved the goals that we set for the session. So having done that, the next marker is the coach inquires about or explores what is important or meaningful to the client for what they want to accomplish in this session. So it's about the coach exploring the meaning, importance, professional or personal, behind what the client wants to achieve in this session. This can be explored in many different ways. How the session goal relates to the client's values, beliefs, identity, self-expression, and purpose. So it could be like, what makes having a better work-life balance important for you now? And in the case which I talked about, my coachee was a very senior salesperson, and he wanted a work-life balance. By the end of the session, we had talked about measures of success. And then I asked the coachee, you've been a sales manager for many years. You've been having this kind of work schedules for quite a few years now. What makes it important for you that you brought it up at this session? The coach thought for a couple of minutes and said, you know, a couple of weeks back, one of my colleagues, who was also a very sales head for another division, had a heart attack and he died. He had a young family, same like me, similar age, 2 kids. So that has really hit me hard. And I think that is making, for me to get that work on this work-life balance, very important. So when you ask this question, what makes this goal for this session important for you, it goes deep into the coachee's self, explores deeper aspects, the motivation as to why the coachee wants to work on that particular goal. Finally, marker 3.4, which is the fourth and last marker, is that the coach partners with the client to define what the client believes they need to address to achieve what they want to accomplish in the session. This is basically getting the coachee to move forward and move their thinking towards issues that they need to address, any hurdles that they need to overcome, so that what they have as an objective or a goal for the session can be accomplished. It's very important to note that these markers do not have to occur strictly at the beginning of the session. So when a PCC assessor is marking your coaching conversation, they're not looking for these markers to occur right at the very, very beginning of the session. It can occur right through, but it's important that they occur early enough in the session. Because as we said, this competency is about setting the context and the frame for the entire discussions that happen, coaching conversation that happens. So they should occur early enough so that the rest of the session builds on this. In fact, in my coach training, they used to say that, the trainers used to say that, look, say about 10, 12, there's no hard and fast rule, but the thumb rule could be anywhere between 10, 12, even up to 14, 15 minutes you could spend on exploring this and getting this particular competency right. And once you get this right, the rest of the session will follow smoothly. Okay, so we talked about the competency sub-competencies, and the PCC markers. I'd now like to pause for a couple of minutes, and open this up for discussion before I move to the rest, MCC markers, and then a demonstration or an illustration. So if you have any questions or comments, observations, please feel free to, is it okay, Gayatri, if they unmute and speak?
Yes, why not? In fact, there are already questions which I kind of
let's pick them up and then
answered. So, Preeti, you want to just take
Yeah,
this
sure,
on?
sure. Yeah. So, it has been such an engaging part so far that somewhere losing track of the questions. Let me just scroll through it. Yeah. So the first question that came up is, what happens if the client and coachee have different points they want to accomplish from the coaching sessions?
Yeah, and it's not very clear,
client
there's
and
client
the coachee,
or coach, so
is it
I
Isn't it?
exactly
Or
asked
the
that.
client, yeah.
Or is the client different from the coachee in the sense that the client could be the line manager, the
Stakeholder.
coachee could be the coachee?
Yeah.
So, who asked this question? Tarun, if you could just clarify that, we would be able to dig further onto it. Okay, while he does, maybe we should just pick up the other one.
I think he's answered
Okay.
saying client means sponsor.
Okay.
Typically, that's why, you know, in the first couple of sub-competencies, it's to get that alignment. It's very important to get the alignment between the manager of the coachee and, if required, the HR on what will be the focus of the coaching journey or the coaching engagement. What are the goals that are going to be accomplished in the I know it's having gone through this executive coaching. I know it's a bit tricky. It's very important to have a tripartite meeting where the line manager of the coachee himself or herself, and if necessary, the HR people are present, and we agree on that these are the 2 or 3 goals that we are going to be working on during the session, during the all the sessions.
Can I add a little bit over here from what I am seeing? That is, if getting true answers from a coachee is a challenge, maybe the confidentiality part has to be highlighted to the client, which could, encourage that coachee to come up with the right, narrative.
Yeah.
Okay, the next one question. Sometimes the client is aspirational. Example, I want to build my confidence and cannot decide what would be a success measure for the specific session. How do you help the client?
We talked about it earlier. It can be an intangible one. Your goal could be a tangible one, or it could be an intangible. So it could be like exploring what does that confidence mean? How would you know you have the confidence? What will tell you that you have confidence by the end of the session? Exploring that itself will give a sufficient success measures. By the way, anybody else, please feel free to add. And there's some very experienced coaches here. I know many of them I know. Please feel free to add.
Yeah, so I think the beauty about this entire competency is about exploring further so that we bring clarity to the client's mind. The clarity, as I think Vivial put up about nosy curiosity versus coach curiosity. The curiosity for us is something which actually lights the brain of the client rather than the coach. So for example, in the confidence example, if you say, okay, when would you say somebody is confident? So let them just come out with some of the behavioral traits or something. If the client is struggling to even articulate what a confidence would look like or how they would know they've got what they wanted. So exploration kind of allows you to get into what is it really in their mind and heart that they are wanting to take away. Likewise, I think there was an earlier question. Very often the answer is don't know how to proceed from there.
Sorry, what was that?
There was earlier a question, I think there was a remark for some part of your presentation, Vivial. Somebody said clients very often say, I don't know. How do you then proceed from there?
Depends on,
Yeah,
what
there.
I would say depends on about what do they say, I don't know.
Yeah.
Hi, I raised that question. So it was at a point when you were explaining that you asked the client, if to define what would success look like. So how will they know they have achieved what they are looking for? And often they don't have any clarity on what that looks like. So yeah, I think it's similar to what you just spoke about, tangible and intangible. But sometimes that becomes from there to move on becomes a little hazy. So if you have some thoughts on it, it will help.
Yeah, it's basically how well have we explored that aspect. And
Yeah.
One of the ways to look at it is to say, what will help you in this situation? If you say, I don't know, what will help you? What will help you to know to go
Okay.
forward?
Or,
Okay.
as I mentioned, you must have recognized something about not having confidence that you want to
Mhm.
work on. What have you recognized so far?
Okay. Yeah,
Gayatri, can I
sure.
take it?
Yeah, Preet.
So also in these kind of goals, my experience is that whenever the coachee is in that state of lack of confidence, it leads to certain kinds of feelings. So if you try to bring the attention of the coachee to those feelings while he or she is in that state of lack of confidence,
Yeah.
that in the end becomes the measure of success. Because when the coachee goes through the entire coaching sessions and he reflects on all the aspects, and if in the end he's able to get that little bit of confidence in himself, the feelings change.
Yeah.
And the moment the coach identifies that state where the shift has happened a little bit, again asking him that now that you moved from that space of lack of confidence to the current space, how do you feel now?
Yeah.
And that's where the coachee many a times is able to know that the success is happening.
Thank you. Thank you, all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Shall we
Yeah.
move ahead?
Yes, move ahead.
Gayatri?
Let's move on in the interest of time. We
okay.
have a Q&A anyway at the end of the session.
Yeah,
Vaidya,
let me
carry
share
on.
the screen.
Yeah.
Oops, I seem to have gone back in slides. Yeah, here we are.
Yeah.
Okay, that was about the PCC markers. We can come back and discuss some aspects in the next discussion session. Here, I'm going to be talking about the minimum skills required for mastery, and I'm taking these points directly from the ICF document. And the key aspects I have highlighted in red. Essentially, they are the same as the PCC markers, except that it's the clarity and depth that makes a difference. So as I said in our, whether it is the goal for the session, measures of success, importance, it is the depth to which we probe, we get the coachee to think, explore their own thinking, feelings, etc., and get the clarity out of the whole discussion. That makes it masterful. The coach's ability to partner and the depth of partnering, once again, it's the depth. In fact, throughout this mastery, my mentor coach used to say that remember two words, explore and expand. So explore the thinking, feelings, emotions, etc. Expand the thinking of the coachee. Expand the thinking comes in as we go into the other core competencies of ICF core competencies, but critically for this one, it is about exploring and the depth of exploration. Coach's ability to attend to the client's agenda throughout the session. And once again, the coach fully explores what the client or coachee wants to work on and thoroughly explores the importance of the topic of the client, measures of success. Now, this is a document which is talking about evaluation as well, which says that the marking or the evaluation of this competence will be negatively impacted if the coach does not explore the measures of success for the topic to a degree which achieves clarity about the client's intent or direction of the session. Yeah? Does not allow the client full input into the issues that should be discussed relative to client's stated objectives for the session, or does not check with the client about whether the client is moving towards what they wanted to achieve from the session, which can happen during the course of the whole coaching session to say that, look, having talked about it for so long, what do you think? Are we moving in the direction that you wanted to get out of this session? So the primary difference between what I see between the markers for PCC and for mastery are clarity, depth, exploration. These are the keywords that we need to keep in mind. Now, what I'm going to go through next is case study that I have constructed. This is a realistic but fictitious illustration. And the purpose of this illustration is to take you through what might happen in an actual coaching conversation when we are looking at competency 3. As I go through this, what I would request you to do is to think, if you are the coach, what would you do, or what would you say as we go along? I'm going to stop at each section. Whenever there is a coach's point of view, I'm going to stop there and let you think for a couple of seconds. So what, if you are the coachee, what would you say? Okay, let me start. And this is scripted by me. I'm pretty not very good at writing scripts, but please bear with me as we go along. After the preliminary greetings, the coach says, what would be useful or beneficial for you to talk about in our session today? And the coachee says, look, I want to talk about a situation I'm facing in my office now. I had a very good equation with my boss, who was very supportive, and I enjoyed working with them. About a couple of months back, there were some sudden transfers and a new boss has come in their place. I'm having a difficult time with my new boss. She seems to be never satisfied with my work, constantly finds faults, says mean and sometimes nasty things to me about my work. I don't know what to do about this. I'd like to talk about this situation. So if you are the coach, what would you do next? Just think about it. Okay, the way I have constructed is like this. Explore the coach's feelings. I hear that your new boss is not supportive, unlike your previous boss, and in fact, she seems to be dissatisfied with your work and is being unpleasant. How is that making you feel? Or you could say, I hear that new boss, etc., etc. What impact is that having on you? Coachee might say, look, I feel very frustrated. I'm trying my best, but it's not helping. And actually, when I come home, I feel agitated and stressed. It's having an impact on my family life also. Every day I dread going to the office, not knowing what fault she will find. So as a coach, what would likely to be the response? I can see that you are agitated and stressed. Even as you speak about this, I could see that your shoulders are drooping and your voice trailed off. You also said you're trying your best, but it's not helping. What do you think is happening there? So in this, I have highlighted the words agitated and stressed. You're using exactly the words that the coachee used. Trying your best, using the words that the coachee used. As a coach, you're also noticing what's happening physically, tone of voice to the coachee, and you're playing it back to the coachee and asking the coachee what is happening there. That's going deeper into the coachee, the person. As they say, coach the person, not the. You're going deeper into the person, the coachee. Coachy says, I think my new boss is a perfectionist. She sets very high standards and does not tolerate even a small deviation from that. She gets very upset, gets angry when her standards are not met. And as a coach, you could say, and what else? In fact, this three words, and what else, AWE. You might have heard of Michael Bunge's tenure, who's written the book, The Coaching Habit. He says these three words are very powerful in exploration. He says you should use it at least 3 times. And what else? And what else? To get the coachee to go deeper and deeper into their own thinking. When we go into the discussion stage, I want comments on this. What do you think about this approach? So, coachee is going to say many things, I think whatever the coachee says, I've not constructed that part of the conversation, but explore further if that offers opportunities for you to go deeper and deeper into the coachee's thinking, coachee's mind. So you may reach a stage where you can ask, from where you are currently in terms of your working relationship with your new boss, where would you like it to be? I think it should be where she is happy with my work, appreciates my work, and is nice to me or pleasant and cordial with me. So if you're the coach, what would be your next line of, what would be your approach? You could say at this stage, so specifically, having said that you want a happy, is happy with my work, appreciates my work, you could say specifically, what would you like to have by the end of our session? Which is clearly, having probed so far, you are coming to the specific question of what would you like to have by the end of the session, which is 3.1. The coachee could say, look, how can I get to that stage where she is happy with my work and I have a nice work atmosphere? I would like to know what I can do to reach that. So by the end of our session, you would like to know what you can do to make your boss be happy with your work and the work atmosphere is nice. Am I right in mind? So this is to reconfirm to the coachee that that's exactly what he or she is looking for out of that session. And when you play this back to the coachee, gives an opportunity for the coachee to reflect and say, yeah, no, not necessarily, it could be different. Or yeah, that's exactly what I want out of this session. Yeah, that's correct. That's what I want. Then the next could be, okay, by the end of the session, how will you know you have what is needed to make your boss happy with your work and the work atmosphere? So you're repeating that part, make your boss happy with your work and work atmosphere nice, which is the goal for the session. You're asking, how will you know that you have what is needed? So that's 3.2. Well, if I can have 2 or 3 specific steps or actions I can take, that would be very helpful. Okay, so 2 or 3 specific steps that you can take to make your boss happy with your work and you can have a nice work atmosphere. That would be helpful outcomes for you from this session. Am I right? So reconfirming the measures of success. Yeah, absolutely. So while I've constructed this, later during the discussion session, let us discuss. Could the coachee have gone deeper? Could the coach have explored a lot more, either at the 3.1 stage or at this particular stage? Let's discuss that, and I very much welcome some of your views on how that could have been done differently or better. So, coach, great. I'm wondering what makes having your boss happy with your work and a nice work atmosphere important for you at this stage. I've used the word great. Some of the mentor coaches told me don't use any words like fantastic, great, wonderful. Ideally, stick to right, okay, and similar neutral kind of words. But probably your perspective or your take would be different. I've deliberately used the word great. Say, okay, what is important for you at this stage? So we come to 3.3. The coach might say, look, see, I've worked for 5 years at this company with my previous boss. I enjoyed my work, happy at my work, and now I'm due for promotion and I'm expecting a good increase in my pay. And previous boss had said that I'll get these. But if the new boss is not happy with my work, I will miss out on these or miss out on both of these. So you realize the importance of getting the goals achieved or the outcome of this session, how important it is for the coach. So your promotion and salary hike are dependent on your new boss being happy with your work. So that's what makes it important. But you're just reconfirming it back, playing it back to the coaching. Yeah, correct. But in addition, I'm also someone who likes a nice, pleasant work environment. Otherwise, it has a bad effect on many aspects of my life as well. So in addition to the promotion and salary increase, having a pleasant work environment also makes life easier for you. So then comes to what issues do you think you need to address? That's 3.4. So with this, and then of course the coachee may say a couple of things, you need to explore this further. So I have constructed this just to illustrate the various markers, demonstration of the various markers, and getting to a tight contracting for the session with the client, with the coachee. I would very much welcome your views, thoughts about this entire discussion. Do you think it could have been better? It could have been different? So let me stop share and ask for your views.
I can see Piyush Dikshit has raised his hand. Yeah, Piyush, you'd like to say?
Yeah, one question I had is the things that the coach is striving towards are not in his control. He might take the steps that he says he will, and yet the boss may not really approve or be happy, and the relationship. So it's a little out of his circle of control, if you will. Would you bring that up?
So yeah, absolutely brilliant. How would you then ask that?
Good question. So I might say, what can you do to ensure that Or rather, I would say, how much of your boss's happiness would be in your control?
Hmm, hmm. So what the point is, I think when Gayatri and I were debating the script, instead of looking at an external source, what is your internal resources that you can use?
Yeah, and I loved your questions in terms of how you got there. He did say what your questions were, what can you do and what can you do? So that was great. But I was wondering if we could challenge,
Okay.
I could challenge you.
Yeah, good. Let's go to who has that? Tushima or some Tushima. Yeah.
Yeah, I think maybe a couple of people had their hand raised before me.
Okay.
So-
Who else?
That was me.
Shivananda Reddy.
Yeah. Okay. Dr. Shivanand.
So that was me, Vaibhav. Thank you.
Yeah, please.
So I have, when I looked at the conversation, it's all about right. It is focusing on what aspect of it, right? So when you look at the PCC level, right? So it is actually kind of enabling or empowering the coachee to think beyond what. Right? My question is, so this is the competency which talks about or set the context, right? So what is important, but then at what stage should we also focusing on how, right? So how can we empower the coaching? Should it happen in the first session or should it happen, as we go, along the conversation? So
Yeah.
This is primarily about getting the contract or the agreement for the session done. I didn't actually get the gist of your question.
So let me take a stab on that, Shivananda. Yeah, see, I think very often if the exploration is done at the outset, the goal might not change during the session. So having gone through the script conversation that Vaibhav had put up, if you now come up with, what is in your control, how would you know, that your boss can be kept happy, etc., and gets the client reflect, the goal session might change. They might just say, what can I do to strike a balance with this, or how can I step up my work, or whatever that is, so the goal might change. So in the interest of a goal which is smart, as I say, it's measurable, it's realistic, it's achievable for the client, which again you challenge at various stages before you seal and say that this is something that we work on. I think you might have seen in Marcia Reynolds' demonstrations, she's always contracting. In fact, there is this acronym called ABC, always be contracting. So you are always making sure that this is exactly what the client wants. And you could always be contracting even up to perhaps 30 minutes into the call. Sometimes the clarity comes in the goal itself, in digging deeper into what the client wants. Okay, I'm going to take a quick photo of this. Yeah.
Yeah, next
Tushima had her.
Tushima, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know if this is relevant to CC3, but I kind of got caught up in the entire case study. And what I really want to ask the coachee is, what's the connection between doing your job well and having a good work environment? And see if the coachee is willing to explore how it feels to them to actually shape their behavior and approach. How, their own feelings towards the boss. What might it do to them? How do you feel about having to do all of this to be able to maintain that status quo, keep the boss happy? What will make you happy?
Yeah. What do you want out of this?
Yes.
So yeah.
Yeah,
I think
because
that is
I'm really wondering, I mean, this is the person in me who's asking, why does having a pleasant work atmosphere, why is that contingent on me doing my job well?
Yeah.
Why can't I have a pleasant work atmosphere anyway?
Yeah. Yeah. So there are multiple, threads of exploration possible. One of the things that I had bounced off with Vaibhav was that if you notice the opening conversation, the person said that I find it difficult in the office So what meaning are you making that it is becoming difficult for you?
Yeah.
So is there something that they are attaching to, their deliverable, or they're not good enough, or, what is the meaning that you're making? So that can again take the client deeper. So yeah, I think this was just a sample so that we could elicit and get all these conversations going. But very obviously, the power of 3.1, 3.2, 3.3 is exactly this. If you keep asking this to take the client deeper, the thing that they come up with, the symptom or the problem that they come up with, is invariably not what they want to accomplish in the call. It
But
might
I
be.
had constructed
May I
an-
request everyone to please put on their cameras so I can get a glimpse of all of you in this photo. Thank you. I still see not everyone has put on their cameras, so we all are looking good. I want us to look good. Thank you. Yes, please carry on the discussion.
So I had constructed another dialogue where the coach is asking the coachee, in this relationship with your new boss, who should you be? So that
Yeah.
saying, what should you be, who should you be, so that you get appreciation, or you have a pleasant work environment, etc., etc. So in the interest of time, unfortunately, I can't go through that part of the dialogue right now.
Yeah.
But Anuradha has her hand up. Anu, please go ahead.
I think you took the words out of my mouth, YBL, when I was so it's exactly on those lines, to kind of have the client reflect on what's changed in terms of, has anything happened in terms of behavior of the client which has changed from this previous boss to this one, or so allow the client to explore and reflect upon what's different, and then try and figure out if something that the client is doing which is causing this angst, because he's used very bold statements like, I'm frustrated, right? So what was happening earlier and what was happening. So you're little bit trying to go towards the situation, but largely you're going to ask the person in the situation. You're really going to reflect on that as to what really has changed, because your performance, your work and environment would not have changed so drastically. So allow the client maybe to also explore that piece, and hopefully they will get some insights in terms of what's really happening here, which is causing this thing to happen.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I think I was just about to say that the 3.4 bit, which is about what you need to address or resolve to get what you want, is really the key subcompetency there. Because the moment, and that completely shifts the focus on the client and what do they really need to address or resolve, rather than chasing an outward goal like keeping somebody happy. Okay, I'm going to just put up a feedback poll. So please engage in the conversation while it comes up and do respond to the feedback.
So there is another question, YVL.
Yeah, sure.
How important is it to keep paraphrasing at every stage? Understand it uses client's language. However, it may make the interaction less conversational.
There are two purposes served by the paraphrasing. One is you are letting the coachee think about what they said, and did they really, did anything change by hearing it back? One key thing to keep in mind is you're not parroting, you're paraphrasing. If you just parrot back what the coachee said, that is not helping. By paraphrasing, you are provoking the coachee to think further. So that is the purpose of, in fact, Marsha Reynolds, as Gayatri talked about Marsha, she calls it reflective inquiry. You're using reflection back as a means of inquiry.
Right. Also, does reconfirming helps to make the coachee feel more empowered?
Yeah, absolutely. The coachee is then listening to, once again, is this really what I want? And has the opportunity to change.
Yeah.
What can you do in terms of your contribution to the environment in office or your boss's happiness? Okay, this is a question which the coach can.
Coach can ask this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's about it in the chat box.
But I would urge some of you to think about this question about asking, who should you be in that relationship with the boss, so that that creates the relationship and the work environment that you want. I think we have.
Yeah, an
running-
adjunct there, who are you being right now when you are
Mm,
in this mode of frustration and,
yeah.
all of that? Who are you being? How are you showing up? I hope you've all got the poll popping up on your screens. Please do complete that so we can make it a richer experience for you, webinar after webinar. And really appreciate you all taking your time to attend this. Any more questions, Preeti, on the
No, on the chat box? No, there are no more questions. Anyone would like to ask a question right now?
Yeah, YBL, hi. Thanks very much. This is Arvind. Excellent illustration. I don't want to reflect on the illustration because there has been a lot of discussion. I do have a point of view on the earlier question about if there is a difference between what the sponsor wants and what the coachee wants. How do you resolve? And I was seeing some comments to say, the client always wins, and that is where I have a disagreement. I mean, the coach courage has to be fierce in places like these.
Exactly.
In case the client wins, then there is a culture of pushing people on taking up and changing to what the boss wants, and that's really against the ethics of coaching completely.
Yeah.
I really encourage whoever wants to get into coaching to first start with yourself and not suck up to the to the people, so that your business keeps coming. Business will always keep coming if you are a courageous coach and support a certain transparency. There's no talk, and there's no point talking about confidentiality if you cannot have a transparent understanding with the client. And I just thought I'll
No, Arvind, completely second what you're saying, because until the coach owns their agenda, the journey is not going to create any impact for the coachee. And so the coachee needs to be able to own their agenda, own their goals.
And also, I feel a lot of times these reports that you are supposed to submit, etc., I can share my experience. I don't submit any report because I tell the client, I mean, sometimes the sponsor, that sometimes he cribs about you. So what do you want me to write? That he cribs about you? I mean, come on. I mean, what I discuss with him is between him and me. So, or her. So let's not get into this. We can have a tripartite discussion about whether it's going well, because I definitely have better things to do. In case it's not going well, we'll call it off there and then. So it has to be courageous from the side of the coach. You have to, have a back.
Yeah. Naval has a hand up.
Yes, good evening. Thank you so much for allowing me here in the nick of the time. Just one quick question I had. I do understand the importance of establishing 3.1. The whole agenda runs around that when there are the tripartite agreements or a company stepping in and they are sending the coaches, and it is not the executive team or the leadership team, or it might be the frontline team over there who are not very keen or not aware about the coaching concept, and they are forced upon that you have to undergo a coaching session and you have to do this and you do that, whatever the HR or the line manager is asking. In that sense, what is advisable as a coach? what could be a better way to deal in those situations where the coachee has said across that I'm just here, or we are just discussing because it's a part of the situation and all.
Yeah, that's a very tough situation to be in.
Oh,
I
so
think
yeah,
right in the beginning, even in the what is it called, the chemistry call, you may want to explore what is the coach's expectations from the session. What does the coachee know what coaching is? Does he or she know the difference between that and other modes? And what is the expectation? If it turns out the coachee is saying that, look, I came here because my boss asked me to come here. Okay, having come here because the boss asked you to come, what do you expect out of our? What will be beneficial for you? What will be helpful for you? And you could talk about things like, look, if you want to perform better in your job, is that something that this sessions are going to help you? Is it something that you're looking forward to in your promotion or career growth? Do you think that this is, explore some of those and see if it makes sense?
All right. So
and then
nudging them
explore the
towards,
resistance. Naval, I would say, okay, you are here for whatever reasons. So what are you resisting? Your boss might have put you up here, but what is really happening? So
okay.
if you are not aligned with it. So a lot of exploration can be done in
So-
terms of what is it that, they would like to take away, having come into this space. And the
So it's a-
choice is theirs completely.
So pre-exploration before actually the 3.1 or 3.3 happens,
Yeah,
right?
This is the chemistry
Yeah,
call.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, so I'm going to close the poll. I think all people have responded. Thank you for doing so. And thank you, all of you, for being here.
Thank you. I mean,
And thank you, Vaivil, for
Thank you.
sharing a very fantastic learning experience. And I think it just comes alive when all people participate and there is a discussion which happens. And it is such a topic where, there could be so many possibilities. As we all know, there's no right or wrong in a coaching session. However, these markers kind of become bookends, kind of become, anchors for us to know that if we have done these, then the process will take care of making sure that the results are there for the client. And so thank you for being here. Thank you for listening through this and equally participating very well in this masterclass. And YVL, thank you so much for your wisdom, for sharing your live cases and taking us through a sample example to actually kind of project or enliven, embolden the entire competency 3. Thank you, Preeti and Nandini, for hosting it along with me. And we look forward to seeing you all again into our next webinar. I know we are a little overboard on the time, but I think it's for good reason. And we are taking away a lot of insights here. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Gayatri. Thanks, everyone.
Thank
you.
Thank you, Vaivil. Thank you.
Take care.